Good evening and welcome to The Way It Is Naturally. I'm your host, Terry Larrabee, and we are going to be doing Spotlight Friday. I have done this show on myself quite a while back, but because I have ventured into quite a number of Facebook groups and other areas as well, and a lot of people have been wondering just who I am and you know uh, what type of knowledge I have and where are my credentials, that type of thing. So today is going to be the history of me, and we'll be right back in a moment. Hi again, and welcome back. I'm just going to start the show off by telling everybody, if you see me in any of your Facebook groups, or you see me on one of the tabs, for example, feel free to contact me. I'd like to hear from you. I'm always looking for new people to bring onto the show, and especially on Spotlight Friday. Spotlight Friday is basically what it sounds like. I want to take individuals that have stories, whether they've had great transformations in their physiques. They've gone through, very large emotional transitions as well. Life's events, anything that's related to natural training, natural fitness, and a change of life. Or also I'm looking for individuals to come on, and even if it's to come on for a debate, people that are in the bodybuilding and fitness industry, or just people with opinions on what's going on in regards to drug use and drug abuse, and or come in and maybe you've had a history, maybe you've come from that angle, and you decided to do it the right way, and made some large changes in your life, and how that affected you. I'd love to hear about that. Those are human interest stories that I think everybody wants to hear. Plus the fact that it's so inspiring to many individuals. I've learned over the past month or so from being just in the Facebook groups alone of how many people are just raw beginners and do not even have a clue on where to start. That's just, it actually surprises me, to be honest with you, but it is a reality. People are looking for a grassroots startup. And I do notice that a lot of people, getting some misinformation, sometimes by people who don't mean well, sometimes by people who mean well, but really do not have the credentials to be answering their questions properly. They're answering just through their own personal experience. And that can lead people astray in the wrong direction, as well intended as it may seem. So today I'm going to talk about myself, my background, how I developed into who I am today, things that I've gone through both in the training world, as well as things associated with my faith and my belief in Jesus Christ, and all the things that make up a human. I mean, we all have our story, right? So I'm going to start right from the beginning. I am currently, kind of from the beginning. I just turned 60 years old last month. And for the biggest part of my life, I was very, very healthy, right up until the age of 50. I started my training, my actual training, when I was 17 years old. But I'm going to back up just a little bit and tell you that I was that kid that at 6 years old looked at a picture of his first muscle man, so to speak, and that was it. That was me. That was what I wanted to be. And that picture was burned into my mind. It was an actual picture of a gentleman by the name of Harold Poole. Harold Poole, to most people, you wouldn't even know this guy's name from a hole in the wall. But him, along with names like Chuck Sipes, Dave Draper, Freddie Ortiz, the Myth, Sergio Olivia, Oliva, or however you want to pronounce that. These are guys that came along before Arnold was even over in America. No, I mean, Arnold was still an early teen at that time. So these are the people that inspired me at the beginning and made me realize that that is what I wanted. I wanted to be like that. And it had nothing to do with identity. I mean, you're 6 years old. I mean, really, you're not thinking about girls. You're not thinking about, you have no insecurities. I was just totally amazed. I was amazed at what they were. Almost a little freaked out, to be honest with you, but because I'd look at pictures, because the picture of Harold Poole in particular, Harold Poole was the first man and actually did what we call the most muscular, but back in the day it was actually called a crab. And he was all oiled up and veiny, and his traps looked like they were coming over his head. And I just couldn't get enough of that. I want to be like that. So what happened? What was the catalyst for me? Okay, well, basically, I'm going to skim through this area because my early childhood was a mixture of good and bad. And that was meaning mainly because the bad part was all related to my father, who was just not a very supportive individual. But luckily at that point, I had a lot of brothers and sisters. I was born into a Catholic family, and I had 8 brothers and sisters at the time, and a wonderful mother. And all that balanced out. I was very much into sport when I was young, but because of my father's attitude towards things, he basically stopped supporting me and allowing me to participate in sports at a very early age. And I had great resentment about that. And because I was actually quite talented, especially in the area of hockey. Um, and he was just not a nice man. He regularly got drunk, and he regularly beat his younger boys. And I mean beat them badly. And it just wasn't a good situation. I don't want to say luckily, but I believe the good Lord, played his hand at that point. My father had many issues. One of them being, he wasn't faithful to my mother for many, many years. And one day when I was still 14 at the time, he had a heart attack and he died. And at that moment, I don't know how to explain this, but there was a sense of fear, and there was also a tremendous sense of relief. But the downside of it was, I basically, after all those years of suppression, not being able to do this and being afraid to basically just walk in the house around him, I came completely unwound. And I turned to, at 14 years old, I started hanging out with older guys, and I started drinking every night, started doing smoking drugs. I didn't get into any of the heavier drugs. For some reason, maybe it was just my upbringing, I just couldn't get past that. So I did some weed and some hash at that point. I could have done a lot of other things. Those guys were doing lots of different things, but I didn't. I'll also tell you that prior to that, I think it was a year before my father passed away. I was 13, and I decided when I turned 13 that I didn't need God or Jesus Christ in my life. And I actually remember having a conversation with my mother, and she was very upset about it. And of course, it was the only time my father ever sided with me, because he was basically the devil himself. So I didn't walk away from God, but I walked away from going to formal church, and I didn't follow, like, Jesus Christ wasn't part of my life. I believed there was a God. I never stopped believing in that, but I started making excuses and making amends as well. I would not call him God. I would call him other things. Anyways, so that was my background. And then I met a girl at the age of 15, and we started dating. I don't know what she saw in me, because she was very attractive, had an hourglass figure, very large chested, and a pretty face. And I looked like a bum. I honestly admit I looked like a bum. I mean, I wasn't ugly, but I was basically, I don't know, 180 pounds, probably a 34, 36-inch waistline, no shoulders, no muscle. I had just gone completely away from athletics completely because of basically those years with my father, and I just lost interest. I was doing everything but sport. So after a little while with her, though, she got a little bit more strict with me, which was a good thing. And she told me that, the excessive drinking and drugs had to stop, and if they didn't stop, she was leaving. So sorry, my dog's creeping around there. I hope he's going to get a good boy during this broadcast. Anyways, so long story short, I stopped drinking very much. I had the occasional drink when we went out somewhere. I Smoking kind of happened on and off. I was into doing smoking at that time too. I definitely stopped doing drugs. And, I was definitely on the right track, but I hadn't nailed anything down permanently at all. So, what was the big catalyst that actually got me back into, started training? Not just, wanting to be because I kind of forgot about that dream, yet, it was still in the back of my mind. And whenever I saw somebody with muscle, whether I was looking at the corner of my eye or whatever, I liked that, right? So, 16 years old, actually 16, just turned 17. We both, because we were both the same age, we went down to Florida. And as I said, my girlfriend was very attractive, just naturally. She didn't work at anything. She could eat what she wanted, do what she wanted. Her figure stayed the same. Like I said, very large breasted on top of that. So you put it all together and she got a lot of attention. And I was a very jealous young man. And when we went down to Florida, she was getting hit on by lots of older guys. And when I say older, I mean like in her late 20s, early 30s, and I wasn't happy about that. I have to hopefully, okay. I hope my dog doesn't make too much noise. Anyways, so after that trip, I got back and I decided that I got to do something about this. So I don't know, it was probably the day or two after I got back, and this was in the spring when I turned 17. And I remember driving by this place and they were moving fitness equipment of some sort into there. And for whatever reason, I decided to just pull in and I asked them if they needed a hand. So it turns out it was a brand new Nautilus club that was opening up. And I went in there and I helped them move. And then they asked me if I wanted to join, be a member. And, they gave me some type of deal. And the next day I came back for my first workout. And I have to tell you, that first workout, A, I was hooked after it, but B, it just about killed me. Like my body hadn't been through anything athletic in years, and everything hurt. Everything hurt. I didn't feel healthy. I was still feeling the effects of it. I was still smoking off and on. It just wasn't good, but the two together. But the good thing about it was that day I decided that all that was stopping. So I barely drank from that point on. I started eating much better, and I didn't smoke. I got rid of drugs completely, and I was, for lack of a better term, I was religious about training. And, I didn't know anything about training. But the thing about me was, I know that my mentality has always been, if there's something that I'm passionate about, I want to do it 150%. So literally from day one, I went out and, I started hunting down health food stores. And then I started hunting down magazines and any other publications. I bought at the age of 16, because we didn't have the internet at that time or applications like we have on our phones. I went out and actually bought a nutritional almanac, and that was my style of reading. I didn't read novels. I read anything and everything that had to do with training and nutrition, starting at the age of 17 years old. I was obsessed. I found two stores I grew up in the Ottawa area. I grew up and I would go to these two stores in downtown Ottawa that I knew carried the muscle magazines. And I was a fanatic about it. Every month I would buy the editions of all these, there was about 5 or 6 of them. And to be quite honest with you, I'd be a fairly rich man these days because I bought every one, and many of these things were, like I said, they came and went and no longer in production, and they would have been worth a fortune. And I literally threw them all out. I threw them all out. That's just, to me, I didn't think about that. It was just, I just wanted knowledge. That's what I did. And on top of that, I took my bedroom and I would take out all the pictures of all these guys that I was impressed with, and I would plaster my walls. So my wall, literally all 4 of my walls, were completely filled with pictures of bodybuilders. You couldn't find a wall space. Everything was pictures. And because I was obsessed. Anyways, between the ages of 17 and 18, I dropped a humongous, I wish I had that picture. I probably can get it somewhere anyways, but I lost a tremendous amount of body fat and got into, I gained some muscle for sure, but, still not knowing really what I was doing as a bodybuilder. I didn't know exercise, and I was still strictly doing Nautilus machines. But I met a couple of guys there and we started training together, but we both kind of had that same mentality where we wanted to do more and more and more, and they weren't big into that in the Nautilus Club. We ended up actually getting kicked out. So what to do? So we decided, well, we'll pool our whatever money we had and the equipment that we had, and we start training in my basement. And I would literally drive. I had one of the guys I trained with. There was only me and him actually at this point, and he wanted to train at my house, so I'd have to drive him a half hour at the west end of town, pick him up, bring him to the house. We'd train, and I'd bring him back home, and that up. So it cut into my time with my girlfriend, and she wasn't getting happy about that. But I was dedicated and a fanatic. I didn't eat things with sugar in it. I stopped eating sweets. I was going at this full tilt. Fast forwarding just a little bit, I went into a number of different clubs. I trained at the local YMCA. Basically, in those clubs, you actually had to put your equipment together. We didn't have machines. The most we ever had was one cable machine where you could do some rows and some tricep work. And half the time the cable would snap on that. We literally had to do squatting, no matter how heavy it was, off of two little piddly little stands. And that's what we squatted off of. There was nothing fancy for almost my first 4 years. But after 2.5 years, I actually went onto the stage for the first time in my life. And up until this point, I was still very naive. Even though from day one at the club, I was told, well, you can't gain muscle like that unless you take drugs. And remember, we're back in 1977 at this point, right? Maybe 78, 79 by now. Anyways, and I just told them they're just full of crap and they didn't know anything. Of course you can, right? Because I was just some young guy and I knew everything and I wanted to believe, and I didn't want to do drugs to get there. So anyways, I stepped on stage for the first time. I was 18, I do believe at the time, not even quite 19. And it was actually called the Can-Am Championships. And I do believe that show still runs today. And I didn't do so well, but I think I placed fourth or fifth, but I wasn't high enough up to be on the night show, which is very disappointing because I had friends and family that went down to the US for the show and everything. And I was just very disappointed in myself. So I went home, but this is the way my mentality was from day one. I was not taking that loss and then feeling sorry for myself. I was back in the gym the next day. It's like, I'm going to rectify this. So anyways, the following year, they came out with the first Ottawa City Championships, and I went in again, and I placed third. And I know that the two guys in front of me were both using anabolics. So the funny thing is, back then, everything was very hush-hush. There wasn't, not like today where you can go anywhere on YouTube and there's open discussions, even though it's still illegal. They talk about it like it's just, sitting around drinking ginger ale. There's no respect for it whatsoever. But anyways, I competed, placed third. I had the nicest structure, and I always went down to Florida. I went down to Florida for 3 weeks before the show, so I had a great tan. Didn't have to use any spray tan at all. And but I didn't have enough muscle mass. I looked great in certain pictures. I didn't have enough thickness. And anyway, so second year, I continued to train. Like I said, back in the gym the very next day. And I started, and I came back the second year, same show, and placed third again. Once again, the guys in front of me, definitely both doing drugs. And I was getting a little bit upset at this point. So this is where my life changed a little bit. I made a decision, which I regret to this day, but considering what goes on these days, literally, it was nothing. But I decided that I'm going to go the other route and I'm going to try drugs, right? But I still didn't even know anything about that. I literally thought that you take a little bit of this and, that's what it was, right? And all of a sudden you were whatever. I was so naive. I still always wanted to believe that, that this was the end of it. So this was natural and this was whatever. And I took literally 8 weeks. I did no bulking at all. We use that term. I don't use that term bulking anymore at all. But back then, I didn't do any like strength building in the off season, nothing. I trained all year round, and I decided getting ready for that show that I'm going to use a little something. So I took. I started off with a quarter. not lying with this. At 12 weeks out, I started out at a quarter cc of decadravelin a week. That was it. After 2 weeks, I went up to a half cc. By the time I got to the 4 weeks before the show, I was at 3/4 of a cc of decadravelin a week. That's all I took. And then on top of that, I went down to Florida, and I trained. Because I was going down there, I was thinking, oh boy, I can't get caught with this stuff. So I stopped. I went off everything. So I'm a month out from the show, taking that little bit, and I was dieting literally. When I was taking that stuff, I was eating nothing but chicken and fruit, and it was actually almost always oranges. and I would have a few eggs with toast and juice in the morning. That was my diet. Anyway, I went down to Florida, and I can tell you that even taking just that little bit of stuff, psychologically, it makes you it changes you right from square one. I can tell you that. My girlfriend at the time would have told you that. It doesn't take a lot. And compared to what people are taking these days, I mean, that was like, you wouldn't even consider that snorting, that stuff. It was like nothing. Anyways, so I do have a little bit of background on what happens when you take this stuff. I can tell you right now that, well, maybe I have good genetics. I have a lot of receptors for anabolics, in particular this stuff, because in the course of those weeks, even though I was dieting terribly, and I was, I'm not a big structured guy. I have very small joints. I went up to, I got stronger throughout the whole process of getting ready for the show, and I went into the actual show itself. And when I came back, I knew nothing about carving up, and so I was probably flat. But I was so ripped. I was in the same league as Andres Munzer years before he even came on the scene. There's no word of a lie. I had ripped hamstrings, ripped glutes. I had it all. And this was in 1977. And, and I didn't plan it that way. I mopped the floor with these guys because I already had a good structure. Nobody came in the condition that I was in. Like, I was almost in scary rip condition. It didn't, if I looked at myself, it didn't look healthy, but it was like way above the standard at that point. So what did I do? I decided that the next year I would take a little bit more. But once again, after the show, I went back to doing nothing because I thought this is how everybody did it. They didn't take stuff in the off season. They just used that for a show, right? So I trained, and I trained hard all year round. And anyways, I think it was about 12, 14 weeks out from, I decided, okay, I'm going to take a little bit more. So what I did was I started off at a half cc of decadrabolin and a 5 milligram tablet of Danabol. That was it. That's all I took. And I think 2 or 3 weeks into that, I went up to a 3/4 of a cc and still 5 milligrams. And then I think I finished off at maybe 1 cc of decadrabolin for the whole week and 10 milligrams of Danabol. That was it. Well, let me tell you, I put on an incredible amount of size. I went from middleweight to light heavyweight, and this is on a diet. This is in a caloric deficit. For those people who don't believe that you can actually gain on a caloric deficit, I did, and I got stronger. And just to show you, so people understand where I'm coming from when I'm preaching about natural bodybuilding. They say, well, you had no experience, or you don't. I know very well. This is what happened to me. Other than the negative side effects, which were at that time, my blood pressure was definitely up. Mental state was, not so friendly. Definitely not. I was never paranoid or anything like that. I never had problems with my own personal image. I never had that. Okay. But anyways, getting ready for the show. So here I was. I started off, and throughout the whole process, once again, I got stronger. And just for an indication of what I mean by stronger, legs have never been a tremendous thing for me. Like for me to squat 315 pounds, for example, that was a challenge for 6 repetitions. And that was at a body weight of top body weight of probably 185 pounds, 190 maybe maximum. And that was doing squatting first. So putting all my psych into it. Anyways, when I went on this cycle, this is not kidding, just before I left for Florida, once again, 1 month out, I went in to do a leg workout. I normally don't even like doing leg extensions, but I did leg extensions. I forget what weight I was using, but way more than I ever used in my life. I then went onto the hack squat machine, and I was using a few hundred pounds on the hack squat machine. Then I went and squatted, and I did 405 pounds on the squat at the end of my workout for 6 repetitions without a problem. Just to show you that that's the difference this stuff makes, okay? But so here I was once again dieting like a tool. Even though I was studying nutrition, this is what I thought you need to do. Yes, you can get ripped, but I wasn't. Anyways, I went down to Florida 4 weeks before the show, and I had stopped everything because once again, I didn't want to get caught bringing stuff across the border. And so I come in off everything a month ahead of the show. And what happened though was probably the best thing that ever happened in my life. And this is what sent the message home to me that this is not the way to do it. When I went down to, actually it wasn't Florida, I went to South Carolina this year and stayed at my sister's place. And my sister had a girl working for her. My sister had jewelry places on the boardwalk. Anyways, this girl happened to have the flu when I get down there. And I was sharing my sister's house with her. So what happened, of course, I got the flu a few weeks out from the show. So here I was fighting this. I could feel it. Like, I mean, it was brutal just trying to get a workout in. I went down there in like mint condition, and I was now 190 some pounds in mint condition. I mean, I wasn't far off my Ottawa Championship winning condition at this point, a month out. That was the big difference in 1 year on that little bit of stuff. Okay. So anyways, what happened was I was getting flatter and losing size. And anyways, I went into the show when I got back. This was the Ontario Championships. And I should have won that division. I mean, I should have been easily have won that show. But I placed third. And when I finished that show, I said to myself, this is craziness. Like, what am I doing? This is supposed to be about health. So I put I already thought that I had really taken a whole bunch of drugs and everything else. I was killing myself. In actual fact, I had taken next to nothing, but I just happened to respond very well to it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, so what, for a plastic trophy for, what? I never cared if people noticed me or not. People always noticed me ever since I trained. I was always a decent looking guy, took care of myself. I dressed well. I never had an image problem. Anyway, so I put myself through all that just to get sick and have everything screwed up and go down the toilet. So right then and there, I said, enough. I'm not doing that. So that was the last time I ever took anything at all. And I went back to training like I always did, off season, just hitting it hard. And then anyways, I decided at that point that, of course, I stepped away from competition. I was only 22 at the time, I believe. Yeah, 22. But I was still training hard. But I changed my training around. I started looking at different things. I started, at that point, I developed a system of, it was almost a mixture of supersets and circuit training together. And I liked it. I mean, I was doing my workouts in 20 to 30 minutes. I trained 5 days a week, but I wasn't going to complete failure. I maintained body fat levels, I would say probably in 5 to 8% year round, not even sweating it. And I had a 26-inch waist at 5'10". 5'10", 170 pounds, 26-inch waist, and great definition all the way around. So from there, I don't know what happened, but I've always felt like there was something missing when it came to bodybuilding. Like, it was unfinished business. I needed to fix something. So at 27 years old, not a word of a lie, 3 months out from the show, the Ottawa Championships, I decided I'm going to go back in again. And of course, not using anything at all. All I did at this point really was adjust my diet a little bit and get a little bit more intense. I didn't try to get stronger really. And I went in and I blew that division away, just like that. And on top of that, I won Best Poser Award. Second time winning that. I won that in my first Ottawa Championships as well. So I do know a thing or two about stage presence and posing. So I felt good about that. But, for some reason I decided, okay, I'm going to back out of competition again. I never stopped training. I've trained the whole way through. And I just continued to train, but train in almost similar fashion to what I was doing prior. And I did that for a lot of years. And then some changes happened in my life. And at 30 years old, I decided that I was going to go back to school. So I decided, here I was in Ottawa, and school was, I chose a university in Edmonton. And I had to work like a bugger right up until 3 days before. That's a whole story in itself. But literally, I threw everything I had in my car, drove across the country, and got there the day before the day of registration, and started my education at 30 years old. Never stopped training. Got myself, didn't even have a place to stay, but I got a place to stay. Got myself, they had a half decent gym at the university. And anyways, I trained and I worked 40 hours a week at Purolator Courier. I was in full-time courses in medical laboratory science, a very, very tough course. and I was training bodybuilding. I mean, bodybuilding. I mean, I was going hard and heavy. And then the year before I graduated, I decided I'm going into a show again. I decided I'm going into the Alberta Championships because they said it was going to be the first drug tested show. And of course, I really hadn't been following along too much, how stringent the testing was and things like that. So I decided, well, why not, right? So I think I took 4 months, 4 months of preparation. But this was the other big transition in my life. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, back in the day, the idea of HIIT training or high intense training or Mike Mentzer style or Arthur Jones, nobody was really buying it. They were staying away from it. They were, very weary about it. And, Dorian Yates was preaching it, but still it wasn't big yet. Anyways, the year that was 95. So that was, 2 years of Dorian's reign, and he was preaching this. And I decided to take a second look at it. I was training in a similar style because I never was one of these guys that trained 20, 25 sets of body part. It didn't make sense to me at all. And because I always believed that I was far more intense than most individuals, I got the job done in a lot quicker time. But I thought, why not? What do I have to lose here? Why not take this is an experiment. So I decided I did the same split I was doing, which was a 3-day split. My split has always been, it's my favorite split. I think it's the most productive split. I do chest and back together, I do shoulders and arms together, and I do legs. That was my 3-day split. And I broke it up and I did those body parts once a week. And I did 3 sets per body part, not per exercise. 3 sets per body part, 1 set per exercise, and I only did a warm up on the first one. And that's how I trained for that show. I did not take a supplement. I got to tell you right now, from the time I was 22, other than what I took, I said with the decadrabolin, all those years after, and even during that period, I didn't take any protein supplement, no creatine, no nothing. The most you ever saw me take was a multivitamin, multimineral, or B complex and C because they're water soluble. And I did the same thing for the show. There was no supplementation whatsoever, nothing. This is all just pure food and hard training. I went in and I won my class at the Alberta Championships. Funny thing is, I actually won that whole show because all the other class winners all tested positive. But this was what happened to me at that show. Another big pivotal point. Even though it was drug tested, there was actually not just the winners' trophies net, but they also had awards. They had a set of watches and a trip or 2 to Hawaii on the line for the overall winner. So I thought, great, I'm now the overall winner because all the other class winners all tested positive. And I know I'm the only natural guy. I mean, I can tell. And it's not because they were that much better than me. There's just certain things you learn about the way a natural body looks and a non-natural body looks. It has nothing to do with tremendous size, or it's a lot of different factors. But anyways, what really, pardon my language, pissed me off was they had already handed out all those extra things to the overall winner that was declared that night before the results even came back from testing. And they refused to give me the overall title. As far as I know, I was never actually granted it officially. But I was the overall winner. I was the only, and they did that on the grounds that these people weren't informed about all the different drugs they were testing for. Isn't that just bizarre? Well, you don't know. We're not, if they don't tell you exactly which drugs you're using, then the testing is not valid. Which it just put a bad taste in my mouth. That was the last time I stepped on a stage. At that point, not the last time I trained, because training was in my blood. I've always, and throughout this time, I've been training other clients as well. I still continue to do all that. I've been in love with this sport my whole life. It's my passion. It's my lifestyle. And I continue to embellish my knowledge. I continue to study. My course had all to do with everything from kinesiology to physiology, biochemistry. How different organ systems function in the body. All these things benefited the knowledge I was gaining in the field and how I was training people, and I was able to parlay it into a style that I can control my body and my clients any way that I wanted. because I understood and I took the time to learn, and I didn't leave it to pharmaceuticals to get there. Okay. So, anyways, fast forward now to things in life that happened. I went through a first marriage at the age of 40, and that wasn't a very positive period for me at all. I still trained, but it was having negative effects on me. And I got married again a second time. I got divorced, and I got married a second time. I believe that would have been 2008. So I would have been 48 at the time. And year and a half, but there was lots of stress in that relationship. Plus, I was building my second or third business. Alberta was just like that. Boom or bust. Some things were, and every time I got a bust, it was because of who I was doing business with. Anyway, so struggling there. It was a marriage. I was having issues, and it was taking a toll on me. And in 2010, 2011, spring of 2011, I had a heart attack, and it almost killed me. And very bizarre, just to show you how things can be, people. I still had a fairly healthy lifestyle. I didn't smoke. I barely drank. Still trained. But what was out of kilter was my stress level. My stress level was right through the roof, and it was having a large impact on me. I was having problems understanding family and things, and just stuff that I just didn't get it, and it was having a major effect on me. So, anyways, long story short, um, I'm going to back up just a little bit because I'm going to bring faith into this discussion again. In 2010, when there was so much struggle going on, my training was suffering a little bit. I was still training. Marriage was a struggle. Business was a struggle, and I had no more answers. And that's when I actually started my walk with Jesus Christ again. Actually, in October of 2010 was the first time I stepped back into a church since I was 13 years old. I mean, to pray. And I started a routine that day, every morning, which I do till this day still, different times, but in the last several years it hasn't changed. 5:30 in the morning, I get up, I make coffee, I read my Bible, I read my daily, there's a devotional, and I pray, and then I meditate on that before I get on with my day. But anyways, so bizarre, thinking bizarre, here I am. I've now been back walking in the light, so to speak, for 6 months. And the Lord rewarded me with a heart attack. But I didn't get angry. It was like a gift for me. And it was also the first time I remember the ambulance ride in particular. The ambulance ride to the hospital. I remember telling my then wife that I loved her very much, and I wasn't afraid to die. I was quite okay with the idea, and I'd always been very nervous with that concept. I couldn't understand the concept of not being alive because I guess my belief truly wasn't there about what happens after. But ever since I started reading again, I understood what happened after. It was just a transition, and heaven and hell are actually real places, and the devil and God are real people. And I learned that through that sickness, and that was His gift to me. But I also realized, the doctor verified it to me that if I wasn't in such great shape, I would have been dead. So all that training was there for a reason. Why I was still alive, I didn't really understand because I wasn't doing everything right. I still had my demons, but anyways, so moving forward, I continued training. And always in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, boy, I'd love to get back on the stage. I'd love to get back on the stage. I'm now in my 50s. Well, after I had my heart attack, I didn't even know if I could. I was actually worried that I couldn't even train again. I was scared. I was scared to train. I didn't know if I picked up a weight when the doctor was saying, well, you can't lift more than 5 pounds. And I'm thinking, what do you mean I can't lift more than 5 pounds? 5 pounds doing what? So, doctors are very, they're well-intentioned, but when it comes to recoverability from everything from injuries to, many of them are not that. They're good for giving general information about, medical situations and, maybe your prescriptions and your drug, that type of thing. But even then, you have to start taking your health into your own concern. That's what you need to do. And I always did that. I trained through my own. I never had many injuries because I trained smart, But I took everything on my own. I read about it. I found out about it. I didn't, self-medicate, but I mean, I took things into my own hands to learn. Okay. Anyway, so I decided about 2 months after my heart attack that I'm going back to train because that's what was me. That's what my identity was. It wasn't about people noticing me. I didn't even care who noticed me even when I was 17 years old. I just this was a part of my life that I couldn't give up. It was part of my identity. So I went back and I started training, and things started to feel good again. Still problems though in the marriage and other stuff like that. And there was still stress because now I was into another business and more problems there. It was just like, everywhere you go, you're fighting things. But once again, my stress levels were not under control, and it was not a good thing. It was not a good thing to be. I already have a heart attack. I was now up in Fort McMurray. I had several trucks that I owned, and I was running a business, and problems with drivers, and it's just not a good thing, when you're in that shape. But luckily for me, I was back training and training pretty hard. And but what happened was in 2015, bottom fell out up there. That was very stressful. Ended up having to take, lost a lot of my business. But I was still in business, still had trucks, and I got into logging at that point. And then I went, I was still training, still dealing with people, and I decided that, I started training, started working more from home, keeping local trucking jobs as opposed to, and I was down to 2 trucks at this point. And then June of 2016, I was on a road trip from Winnipeg, coming back from Winnipeg. And I got to tell you, the Lord was definitely on my side because things could have been much, much different. But on the way back, I had a horrendous attack of pancreatitis. We're not just talking a little pain here. We're talking about doctors don't know if I'm going to live or not. Luckily, when it happened, I was still married at the time. I told my wife that I was going to pull over because I wasn't feeling well. And thankfully I did, because half an hour down the road from there was no phone service, there was no nothing, and I would have been dead. But something was telling me to pull over, and then a few minutes later I got out of the truck. And for some reason I thought like I just had to throw up, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I buckled, I was on my knees, I was actually crawling on the ground, face first on the ground. I couldn't even get up, I couldn't speak. And I thought my insides were coming out. It was that bad. The ambulance drivers, I managed to call 911. Luckily, the hospital was only 5 minutes away. They gave me some painkiller right away. Anyways, I got to the hospital, and for 2 weeks, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, and they just had me on high doses of different painkillers. I was allergic to morphine. They found out that when I had my heart attack, but they gave me alternatives to that. And I was sitting there and just hoping to live. Didn't even know who I was. Anyways, I survived at that point. And I was in the hospital for a month in Brandon, Manitoba. And my wife had come out and she was staying in the room with me. And then after about a month, we had animals at home. We had to get back to life, so literally I could barely even stand up, couldn't take care of myself at all. But managed to get piled onto a regular commercial plane, and with a letter from administration saying that, bring this to the hospital. They need to admit you right away. Like, you are no condition to go home. Anyways, got off the plane, went right to the University of Alberta Hospital, and believe it or not, they kept me overnight and literally sent me home the next day. I was beside myself. So was my wife. They made an appointment. I went in to see a doctor. 3 weeks later, I was dealing with very mild pain medications. It was killing me. I was in agony the whole time. And anyways, they decided they do this endoscopic procedure, and then so I went in for that. And so this was still in July, and they did this procedure, and Dr. Surgeon told me that, you're going to feel 100% better in this, in a few days. Well, a few days later, I was getting admitted back to the hospital. I was puking up bile, and I was going downhill. Anyways, so that was July. So I was there, and then all the way through. And October 25th, they decided they would do a procedure on me that wasn't supposed to have too much risk. Anyways, they went in and they did this procedure, and An hour or two later, they were calling my wife and they told her that they didn't think I was going to live. Anyways, they had to do emergency surgery and cut me open. They took out most of my pancreas, anything that wasn't attached to a major blood vessel, made a total mess of me. And basically, I ended up on life support. And I barely remember anything about these times at all. I was always in a state of delirium and then hopped up on painkillers. And anyways, I was still in the hospital, and then I went, finally got to go home at the beginning of December, so almost 6 months in hospital. And I had gone into the hospital originally at 230 pounds. I was down to 169 pounds. I couldn't eat. Food tasted like crap. I had no appetite. Life just wasn't good. And just to show you how life can get even worse, but thankfully I always had Jesus Christ in my life, and I had God, and he was still there, because throughout this process, my wife then left me. Of course, my health was in terrible shape. I lost my business. Eventually lost my car, and throughout this process, and I even lost my home. So, and all the people that supposedly were around me, no members from church ever came and visited me. My own brothers and sisters, even when I was on life support, not one of them came out to see me. Basically, my whole world evaporated, and I had no answers as to why. And the doctors didn't even know why I got sick. It was just a rare thing. There was no real reason. Anyways, so I get home, and now life has completely changed. I don't know how I'm going to survive. I got no way of making a living. I haven't had any income now for almost 8 months, and that continued to get worse. My wife moved away. I also tell you that through marriage, I gained 3 grandchildren that I loved to death, and that was the last day I got to see them. So I lost that as well. And that was very important to me, because I had never had kids of my own, and this was like, I had a tremendous bond, especially with my oldest grandchild. And I still consider them my grandchildren, because they can take them away all they want. That doesn't mean they're not my grandchildren. Anyways, so moving forward, I'm not knowing what I'm going to do at this point. And so I'm not training. I'm not doing just because I can't, not because I don't want to. I want to. I'm missing this. I have nothing else to live for at this point. I mean, really, I had my dog, and I had my 2 cats, well, 3 cats at that point, and that was it. Friends were barely around. Well, actually, I only had one friend at that point. Anyways, but I was still dealing with my surgeon. The surgeon that actually saved my life, I was dealing with him, and in 2017, in spring, more bad news. He basically said to me, because when I left the hospital, even though I left, I still had these drains hooked up into me. I'm going to just give you a little bit of I'm going to bring something on screen here just to show you the type of condition I was in. I think you should be able to see this right away. Let's just bring that up. That is a picture of me, and what you see there is not a belly. That's actually me with tremendous fluid buildup and a double hernia after that trip in the hospital. You can see I have no muscle left on my body, and I was 169 pounds at this point. Just so you know, I lost everything. I didn't even know who I was anymore. Anyways, I'll get back into some more pictures there in a second. I'm going to go back to here just for a minute. Anyways, so anyways, in the spring of 2017, he said to me, we had hoped that, we had 2 portions of your pancreas still intact. One was attached to a canal that's draining, and that's good. The other piece is just kind of there, and it's just draining into a cavity, and it hasn't slowed down, and it doesn't look like it's going to. So we don't have a whole lot of options at this point. He said to me that we need to go in. And I have to tell you, it's very high risk surgery, because they're very close to an inflamed blood vessel, and there's a good chance you're going to die. That's what he said to me. There's a good chance you're going to die in the operation. So I said to him, well, I said, I'm not financially ready to die, and spiritually, I said, I'm not. I said, I'm going to go home. I said, I'm going to spend some time in prayer, and I'm going to just, see how things evolve over the next period of time. So he agreed with that. I would have regular visits with him, and several months later, the fluid had stopped developing. which is wonderful. So we're getting close to November, December 2017, and he says to me, he says, I do believe if things continue like this, we could do another minor operation, and we should be able to put in this stent, and it will basically be a permanent fix, and then you should be, as good as you're going to get anyways. So I thought, okay, that's wonderful. So we scheduled an operation, which I went in for in March. It was March 19th, 2018. And I went in to do that. I was supposed to be in the hospital. I went in on the Monday. I got in there Monday morning, went right into surgery. Then I was supposed to be going home on the Saturday. Anyways, when I came to after the surgery, he told me that when they got in, there was no fluid at all. And everything had basically, he called it, was everything had spontaneously decompressed. And there was nothing to deal with anymore, which he said was a good thing. But now I had this other major incision on me, and I now had a double hernia. Because I don't believe in either case, they didn't sew me up too well. Anyways, but just to show you just how funny life is sometimes. So I was now ready to go to the hospital. Friday, they came to change my dressing. And when they go to change my dressing, well, I literally have excrement or shit coming out of my wound. And I'm freaking. And the nurse is freaking. And anyways, they called, and guess who's going back in for another emergency surgery? Yep. They forgot to tell me that when they went in, they actually cut my bowel and didn't tell me about it. They tried to fix it, and obviously they didn't. And I literally could have been home the next day and dead because of all this stuff seeping into my abdominal cavity. So that 5-day stay turned into 6 more weeks on heavy painkillers. And this time they went in, they attached about a 1/2-inch tube right into my large bowel. And that would stay in there for almost 3 months. And then they kept pulling it out a little bit and creating what they call basically a fistula at this point. Of course, I'm not doing any training at all. I'm getting in worse condition, and mentally I've all but almost given up. Other than the fact that I read my Bible all the time and I have faith in Jesus Christ, and I rescued my new dog that I got, my American Bulldog that I love very much. And, everybody else was gone. There was nobody around me, and I was definitely alone. So what did I do? I was at home. I was healing. I still hadn't. I couldn't work again. So I was just playing a sit and wait game. And this was now. So we're now in spring of 2018. So here's where life changed again. I said to myself in August of 2018 that, look, if this is going to be, if this is going to be the end for me, then I want to go out on my terms. So I believe that God has brought me here for some reason, that I'm here for something. I don't know what it is, but I should have been dead numerous times. I'm not. So he obviously wants me to do something still. So in August of 2018, I went back to the gym. And I started with a month. I went in there and I actually talked to the lady at the gym who knew me from before. And I said, I really don't know if I can even do this anymore. I don't know if my body can take it. Can we just do this month to month and just see how things go? And she was very nice. Glenda's a wonderful lady. And anyways, so I started training. And after a month, pardon me, ambulance going by here. Anyways, that feeling like that, this was me, like this is what was missing. I went from there to there. Like, I mean, my whole demeanor, my whole frame of mind, in spite of, how I looked and everything else, I felt like $1,000,000 compared to a month before that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going back to train hard. And I didn't just train hard normally. I went back to HIIT training, high intensity training. There was no in between for me. Like I had to do this, right? Anyways, I'm going to bring this up again, hopefully get to there. So in 3 months, I wish I had known that I was, let me just see if I can pick this up on this other screen here. I wish I had known, that's my post-hospital visit, that I was going to be doing this and, changing my whole life and putting together, my social media presence. And because I'm now doing a couple of books as well, I would have taken more pictures and do the same type of, shots so I could do some comparisons. But just one more picture here I'm going to show you. But this is me actually laying down. You can see I still have one I still have 1 drain left in me. I actually left the hospital with 3 drains in me. And then these 2 pictures here are 3 months. 3 months. So I went from this at 169 pounds to that in 3 months. And I did that by taking protein. The first time I actually decided I'm going to actually do a very thorough testing of supplements. And I took a good quality of whey isolate, and I took a good micronized creatine. That was it. That's what I used for supplements. And I was now 205 pounds again and feeling very, very good. That's what I did in 3 months. I'm just going to go back and show you one other quick shot. This is actually a picture of me in an article. I'm in the center there. This is me at 20 years old after 3 years of training. For those, that's me there. This is actually friends of mine. This is me that was a year before I won the Ottawa Championships. So I did a major transition. I wish I had my other pictures, which I've been trying to get to show you just what had happened in 2 years prior. But so anyways, let me just go back to the other screen and see if I can bring this up. Take this out. Yes. Anyways, so where was I now? So I am now back training hard, and we're about November, and I decided I want to get just a little bit leaner, and I want to just see where I'm sitting, because I've got the bug again. Like I've got the bug again. Like I'm now starting to put things together, starting to build my social presence, and I want to get back on stage again. I'm 58, 59, closing on 60. I want to get on stage before I'm 60. So anyways, things were going very well. I got, like I said, I dieted down, not strict dieted. You know, I was using everything I had taught other people and learned myself. I was about 196 pounds, and I was really liking what I saw. And I thought, okay, October, there's a show in Edmonton, and it's a natural show. And I'm not going in the old man's class. I'm going in the open, and I'm going to win. And I don't know how my abdomen's going to look. I don't know until I'm getting right down and dieted. You know, it could be a disaster. I might have to deal. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my hernias and what my options were there. But anyways, I decided that I'm going into the show. So here I was in February, March of 2000 and this year, and I was looking really good. I mean, I was doing HIIT training. I was getting stronger. I was getting bigger. I was mentally, I was there. I was in a relationship that originally was good. And anyways, long story short, COVID happened. Things happened in the relationship. The shit just hit the fan all together again. And so that was a major hit for me. And it was devastating because the gyms closed down. This was everything. This was basically what brought me back, brought me back to life. You know, this is what it was. It was so much more than just gym for me, and I had planned to have that show be the culmination for me. I was going to do a video log on my YouTube channel, document everything. And of course, with my 2 book projects, everything was going to come together. And then it all went down the toilet, including my relationship. Anyways, so what do? You know what you do? You just keep doing what you normally do. You put your faith in God. You keep yourself in a routine. You try not to think about anything negative as much as you can. And then, sure enough, we finally started to go back to the gym at what was it, July? Somewhere in July, anyways. But it wasn't even clean coming back then. My first week, I don't know what it was. It was just like, everything seemed to be against me. I managed to hurt my back and pulled my brachialis all at the same time. So I nursed through those and then started back training. And I have to tell you, things are going really well again. Still, once again, I was taking just a whey isolate and a micronized creatine, and I got myself up to 218 pounds and feeling very, very good. And I just decided recently I'm going to just lean out a little bit more, even though I'm not carrying a lot of body fat. I'm going to lean out a bit more. And then I've been looking on the schedule. It looks like there's going to be a show coming in, I think it's in May. I think it's May 23rd or something like that. I'm going to finalize that, but I'll be announcing this soon. I'm going to document this as I go through, and I'm planning to go into that show, and God willing, I'm going to win. At 60 years old, 61, well, going on 61 at that point. So that's a little bit of background on me, and that's what when I go into these groups and I talk to people about, what are my credentials? I have 43 years of training myself, training clients. I have a degree in lab medicine. All these things put together, I have a ton of knowledge. So if you need someone to help you train, you need someone to get you going, give you some direction, feel free to contact me. In lieu of that, I hope that people will, start to watch a lot of these live streams, and you can always look at the videos later. Go to my channel on YouTube under Bull Fierce Training, 3 separate words, and subscribe to my channel and like my videos, and everything for me is about the natural platform. I don't try intentionally to create a war with non-natural bodybuilders, but I'm very adamant against PEDs, or performance enhancing drugs. I just am. I want to be everything that isn't. I don't associate that with true bodybuilding or true fitness and sport. And I'm looking for people, people, even those that are using, can learn a lot from my teachings, for sure. And they can definitely, I'm also going to be doing live, I'm available for seminars and webinars. And I'm also, like I said, I have 2 books out. One's coming out. It's going to be complete, basically a Bible for natural bodybuilding, which can be still applicable to those that use, but it's going to delve into all the areas, including what I call the cornerstones of natural training. I'm also doing a second book, which is not autobiographical, touching on a lot of the things I already mentioned here, but going into much more detail, right from my early days as a youth to what's happening now. And those will be available in digital form. One should be available, I believe the autobiographical is going to be ready for before Christmas, and the other one shortly after, I believe in January, if all goes well. I want to tell you folks that I truly love what I'm doing, and I love helping people out. I am passionate about bodybuilding in particular. I'm not like what's happening these days with youth and even with older people that are going into the sport. It's like they're just looking for the quick fix to get there, and they're looking for a few minutes of fame. That's not what it is. And sadly, the younger people that are getting into there in a few years' time, if you haven't already got sick or died from things that you're exposing yourself to, you can have tremendous amounts of issues, and 9 times out of 10, you won't be training anymore. Some of the older people, you're putting yourselves at so much risk at what you're doing. Just go to the gym, just create your lifestyle, make it a healthier lifestyle. You'll appreciate it so much more, and it'll be there forever, for the rest of your years. And because the second you stop taking your stuff, the other stuff is going away. That's the reality. And anybody tells you different, send them my way, and I'll have that discussion. Last thing I'm going to say is, I'm just going to reiterate once more, I am looking for people that have stories. You don't have to be, you didn't have to go from, the kid getting sand kicked in his face to Mr. Olympia. I'm just looking at people that made major changes in their life, are happy about where they're going, they actually changed their lifestyle. Or maybe someone, started off and now they're going into their first show. Whatever the case might be, Spotlight Friday is going to be all about these people, all about your story. Come on out and tell it. You see me in one of the groups, contact me, through on YouTube. Make comment in the comment sections here in any one of my videos, or contact me through Facebook and Messenger. Either way, folks, I love what I'm doing, and I want you to know that if you get on board with me, you're getting on board with somebody who's going to help you attain your goals. I can help you attain those goals because I've done it through natural means. I've done it through perseverance. I've done it through, tremendous amount of mental setbacks and a tremendous amount of physical setbacks. I know what it's like to start from a beginner, in your teens. I know what it's like to train as an older person when people are telling you don't have enough testosterone to do it, and you can. There's so much that I want to share with you. And I hope that you'll jump on board and get on the natural training, okay? I hope I covered everything here. I hope I'm not missing anything. Once again, my name is Perry Larrabee. I am the CEO of Bull Fierce Training. company I started. I also, I'm CEO of Bull Fierce Media. I'm going to get into, that's actually who produces this show. And we do a number of other things with Bull Fierce Media. And I'm going to be, if you visit my website, I'm just fine tuning it a little now, but my books are for sale there. Some of my training programs, well, my packages, because I don't do cookie cutter packages. I also have up there, there's going to be clothing and a very minimal supplement line coming in the next couple of months. And this is my dream come true. Not a public gym. I'm putting in a private one-on-one training facility here in Edmonton. And it'll be, priced that way. You're basically going to be paid. I'm paying me to train you. Not paying for the facility, you're paying me to train you. Definitely going to be private. There's never going to be more than 1 or 2 people here at the same time. Offering services as well for preparation for shows, posing practice. I'm going to have a place set up here for proper posing practice. I'm hoping to get a couple other professionals in here for some, basically a holistic approach to life and training. Those involved in alternative medicine, those involved in maybe massage therapy, that type of thing. I'm like everything else concerning bodybuilding and its associated fitness. I'm so passionate about it. And I'm passionate about all that along with my passion for Jesus Christ. Because without him and without God, I would not be here. I would not be talking to you right now. And I honestly believe that I am around specifically to get this message across. You can have the two of those together. And as I outline in my book that is coming out, never did I imagine that the Iron Game and my faith in Jesus Christ would ever come to a crossroad where they meet merged together to save my life, and which they did. Anyways, I'm Perry. This is the way it is naturally. Signing off. Everybody take care. Have a good weekend and God bless.